Hey friends, I a couple interesting conversations today that sort of left impressions in me, um, and I'm starting to talk about them with no sense of how they're connected or whether they're connected. But as often happens, they may well be. Half the time when I sort of post like this, I think that I'm talking about just two randomly occurring things in my day, and by the end of the post I realize why they're connected. So we'll see if that happens this time. I talked to some colleagues today. We were talking about installing a learning process in some of the work we do, a kind of self-learning process, like a process by which we very deliberately, instead of simply performing the work that we do, we make it explicitly a goal, and we kind of set out strategies for making every engagement, every meeting, every engagement, something that we all learn from, where we're all called upon to digest some new information, to possibly digest some new perspectives, possibly modify our own perspective, right? Like actually just learn, keep learning. And it was really interesting to me how quickly the conversation was able to move from a place of, I don't know what we can do here. I don't know how this is going to work, into, oh, we all just need to read this book, and we need to bring anybody else in the group along, and we need to just do it. It was very striking, and it was almost like it was one of those situations where the answer was so obvious. The answer was like right in front of me, at least, and I think also my colleagues, and we just needed to think it through. We just needed to like say some things out loud and be able to very quickly envision not necessarily a system for this, but a first step and a process that might well take us through the first year of this work. And it was just one of those moments where I thought, this is really kind of great, because it was a moment of just letting what's obvious to me come out explicitly, and very quickly that turned into a concrete proposal for action, for a kind of for a plan. And this is something that, I remember when I was taking some improv classes back in the day. I was even teaching some improv classes, and I worked with a great teacher who was, one of his mantras was, say what's obvious to you. And the reason why that's important advice in an improv context is that most people, when you get on stage, you think that you have to come up with something clever. You think you have to come up with something that nobody else would think of. And so you overthink your responses. And that slows you down. It means that there's an awful lot of premeditated kind of oftentimes just muddied communication. Whereas simply saying what's obvious to you as the improviser, very often the lesson will be, that's not what was obvious to anybody else. Or it was, but the way you said it put enough spin on it to be unique, to make it something nobody else would have anticipated. And so this, like, say your own obvious, tell your own obvious, state your own obvious, state the obvious. I'm trying to come up with the right way of saying this. State the obvious, state your obvious it's like the bedrock of that work. Because if that's all you have to do, then you can stop doing about 95% of the things that we're going to habitually want to do when we're kind of on a stage in a moment of like making up a piece of theater on the fly, and we think we have such a heavy job to do and so much thinking to do, and actually it's mostly just about saying what's obvious to us. So I had a little bit of that in reflecting on the conversation that I had today about this learning process. I had a little bit of that come back to me. I was like, oh, thank God I just kind of blurted out what was at the top of my mind, because it turned into a really valid and I think good proposal. It wasn't me who came up with it, but my saying what was on my mind prompted us to suddenly have something that was able to gel into a proposal. And that was really cool to watch. It was really cool to see, and it was just fun to witness that and be reminded of how that works. The other conversation I had was about a kind of a professional development opportunity that I'm considering, that I'm looking at from a variety of angles. And I think, it's one of these things where it, on the surface of things, it speaks very, very much to me. It really resonates with me. The way of thinking, the way of the nature of the approach, the nature of I've met the guy who would be running it, and it all just really sounds great. The hesitation on my part, or the reason why I'm still kind of struggling with whether or not it's the right thing, is simply that I don't know if it's going in the direction that I want to. I don't know what direction I'm trying to go. I think I've spoken on this post for probably a while now about this feeling of putting things down, letting things go, like letting myself settle into kind of the bottom of a curve of activity, almost going into like a kind of hibernation, incubation. And first of all, there's a discipline even in doing that. There's a certainly for somebody like me, there's a discipline required not to leap at something that will reignite a cycle of activity. it takes some measure of wherewithal for me to just kind of say, I'm not going to pick anything up right now because I sense that what I'm supposed to be doing is kind of bottoming out into a kind of stillness, really fully letting a cycle end so that I can start another one. And in that context, not only is there a discipline required to keep letting go of things and keep from grasping at something, there's also a sense in me that whatever I pick up has significance now. It's something that I want to pick it up on purpose. I want to pick it up with purpose. I don't want to just pick it up because it's there and because it would be interesting and awesome. I want to pick it up because there's an intention behind it that's really connected to me, connected to a deeper purpose and where I see myself going. And lots of things are showing up that are kind of indicating to me, hey, I can be a thing that you do now if you want. But I've really become aware that selecting one is making a significant decision. So there's that. Sometimes I reflect on the cycles of life, how life moves in cycles, and it's been really interesting to see what it has meant to let go and to just sit with what it means to be considering picking something up. I'm not sure if those two conversations are related. Ideally, the obviousness, the state you're obvious of the first conversation would somehow apply to this second conundrum. But I'm not sure it does. Or if it does, it's not obvious to me. So, maybe it will be. Maybe that's my job. Maybe that's my assignment, to kind of take a look at that. What does stating my obvious mean when it comes to this opportunity, but also the bigger picture? But that's where I am today, folks. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.